Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Game of Business. Today's episode, we have Tammy Brown, who is the founder and CEO of Vinyl Pursuit. Tammy, it is great to have you in our show.
Thank you. Thanks, Anish. Thanks for having me today. It's a beautiful day.
It sure is. It sure is. Tammy, you've been running Vinyl Pursuit for 5 years now. And I was going through your profile and I see most of your career has been very creative. You have been involved in packaging, you have been the head designer, marketing and franchise, a lot of creative energy here. So what made you start Vinyl Pursuit?
Well, that's a great question. I suppose it was really through COVID where my marketing firm, Bang Media Works, was at that time very focused on supporting large resorts and helping them deliver guests, what do they call it? Heads in beds is the term. So that was our primary job, working with resorts in the South, Costa Rica, that kind of thing. And with the shutdown of COVID, of course, that came to a screeching halt. And all of a sudden, I found myself with more time and less money. And I started just listening to vinyl because I finally had time to listen to music and reconnected with it and just thought, oh, gee, I'd love to just, buy some new records. And what I discovered really quickly is that they were really expensive. So I just put an ad on Facebook to sell some of my old records to buy some new records. And I couldn't believe how aggressively people wanted those old records. Like they were falling all over themselves to get them. And I thought maybe that's kind of a thing. So I built a small website. I did a little test and I did see that people would buy vintage vinyl online and they would do that. So I just built a much larger version, got a couple of people to assist and just built a much larger version of the original sort of concept. And that is Vinyl Pursuit. Yeah.
Wow. So you started with Facebook Marketplace, just sold some vinyl records and you saw good traction and you're like, hey, this could be a business.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it all evolved fairly quickly. Like, I sort of saw it immediately. Like I posted the ad and got maybe 30, 40 responses in an hour. And you can tell, that it's a thing. So the transition from concept to execution, well, the concept and then the test, the proof of concept were pretty quick, probably 2 weeks. It took me not very long to build a small website to test the idea. And then, the much larger website, well, that's, development never stops, I suppose.
Right.
And that's still ongoing, and that probably took about 2 years to optimize. So there was a transition for sure. And now, even now it still continues. You're always looking for better apps for less money because it's such a huge and crowded market and some of them can be insanely expensive. So you're always on the hunt for the bigger, better deal.
Exactly. And I know all about the website, the major website, and all the SKUs coming in and out, and there's constant updates. Yes, I do resonate with that quite strongly because I have an e-commerce business too. With that being said, I noticed that you like vintage vinyls. Like what made you shift to vintage vinyls? Is there people seeking more of the classics? Is that coming back?
That's such a good question. It's my favorite question because there's a difference in quality between old vinyl, like vintage vinyl, and new vinyl, even if it's the same record. So let's just say, Jovi. Let's just say something middle of the road. Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. Okay. So there's represses of it now, and there's original presses of it from whatever, I think it was 1988, something like that. And the technique used to press the vinyl and even the quality of the material of the vinyl itself is completely different from then till now. Now it is a completely digital process and you're basically buying a CD that's been pressed onto vinyl. Back in the day, it was an analog process. So the scope of the sound is just much wider and much more true to vinyl. So vinyl in itself, the characteristics are quite, warm and pleasing, not necessarily accurate. Accurate is more like CDs. CDs are much more accurate, but vinyl is much more pleasing. The ear likes inconsistencies. It's been proven time and time again. So people that know that are always looking for great vinyl, vintage vinyl in great condition. And that has sort of been our target right from day one, because I knew it myself. I, have collected since I was a kid. So I knew the difference, and you can hear it if you, place two albums side by side and you test them. You can hear the difference, provided you have the equipment that'll help you do that. If you've got a little tabletop system, it's probably not as important to invest in vintage. It might not be as sensitive, but if you have good equipment, you can absolutely hear the difference.
Yes, it's original and analog, which is a whole different experience.
Exactly.
With that being said, who are your audience? Who are the people who love that vintage feel of it, and they like that music on a vinyl? Like, who are your major audience?
Well, our primary audience, I suppose, would be sort of 40 to 65, largely men. So in that, sort of very early boomer age right there. But what we're seeing is this massive influx of younger buyers too. We've got very astute collectors of original Delta blues pressings that are hundreds of dollars each, and they're like 25 years old. They know exactly what they want, and they're absolutely willing to pay for it. So it's surprising, there's lots of other young collectors that are sort of looking a little bit more for newer colored vinyl. It looks beautiful on your table. It doesn't sound as great, but it is beautiful. It's great to look at. And we see a lot of them looking for more novelty items. There's all sorts of amazing albums that, you think of a record as being like a circle, but there can be like triangular albums that are, pressed into all sorts of different shapes, colors, visuals. It's a huge scope.
Fantastic. I know a 13-year-old who likes to collect vintage vinyls.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I think the other thing is that just this whole push to physical media is everything about just people being tired of subscriptions. There's just subscription burnout, and people are tired of subscriptions. And it's just, I think, more pleasing to own your media. Like there's something about it where you pick it up. You don't have to worry about, oh, I'm out of range. Oh, the system's down. Oh, my phone has to buffer. Like there's all these things that seem to get in the way of a really great, straightforward enjoyment of digital media. And when you just can hold it in your hand and hit play and it works, there's something really pleasing about that.
That's interesting. And do you feel people in general are looking for more originality in things?
Absolutely. I think they're just tired of slick and being sold things. I think they're just looking for something real, genuine, authentic. And I get the sense that this push to nostalgia also maybe has something to do with their parents. Like looking back at parents, they seemed happier than we might be now. And I think they're looking for clues. Like, why was that? Was it the culture? What was the music like? Music has always had a lot to say, whether it's, expressing some, beautiful sentiment, or even talking about politics, or what's wrong with society. I mean, it's always been a banner element of culture across the planet. And I think that's really drawing people of all ages just back to things that are real instead of things that are contrived by, demographics and algorithms. And, we're tired of getting played, I think, is kind of the feeling, and no pun intended, but I kind of get the sense that people are just burnt out. They're just tired of that. And, just the ability to, for us, we offer, a pretty big element of convenience because, you're in your home, you can shop from anywhere in the world. You hit, buy, you see how the album is going to get to you, how much that costs, how long that takes. Everything is very upfront, and all the, import paperwork or export or, whatever it may be is all there, and it's a smooth process. It shows up at your door quite quickly, and now it's in your hands, and now you have it. And it is exactly how we described it, which is really important, because when you're selling something that is pretty sensitive, like vinyl, it's fairly delicate. And it's vintage, which means that it's almost always been outside of the sleeve at some point. So you have to be very specific to ensure that the customer, their expectation of what they read meets the reality. So the reality and the expectation absolutely meet in the middle. And we either at least meet it, but hopefully exceed the expectation. That is always the goal. Always.
And I've seen on your website too, you are all about restoring old vinyls, doing ultrasonic cleans. Do you feel like the vinyls can be restored easily, or is it a tough process?
Well, it just depends. If they are in great condition in the first place, and we're very specific about that when sourcing vinyl, we buy typically large collections from real collectors that knew what they had, took really good care of them. They're not from like the, Value Village or something. They've been very well cared for. And I think that's the key, is that you start out with something that's already great, and then you just make it better. So the idea of these ultrasonic restoration systems, we imported them from Germany. They're very high end. And what they do is pull out the gunk in between, like in the grooves of the album, that even are there when it's brand new. When an album's brand new, it still has like a sort of detritus sort of locked into the grooves from just the manufacturing process. So ultrasonic restoration pulls all that out, and then we hand polish them. We put them in archival rice paper sleeves, and we wrap them in bubble wrap and then really strong boxes, and then we ship them. And even if it's going in province, we treat it the same way as if it's going to Europe or overseas somewhere else. And that's the key, like just great packaging and attention to detail. That's very important. And that's why I think we've been able to garner, hundreds and hundreds of 5-star reviews, like verified reviews. And those things, when you know this, like on e-com, that's money in the bank. Like you have to have the power of those reviews, because, I myself for sure look at, any service or any product I'm thinking of buying. And the first thing I do now is check reviews. And I want to see that those reviews are real, because back in the day, everyone just used to write their own testimonials.
Right.
I know this
Exactly.
from designing websites. It's like everybody used to just make them up. People would pay me to do that. But now, there's easy ways to verify that the review came from a real person, and that is really what they wrote, and that's really how they ranked you. Essential. You can't have it any other way.
100%. I love the restoration aspect of the business, that you do the ultrasound cleaning, keeping those vinyls alive. I love that concept. I love it. And I feel there is a lot of people looking for originality. Like they just don't want to stream, download. They want to have a connection with what they're buying. I feel in the world of AI, that is just going to increase.
Yeah, it's true. There's something infinitely comforting, I suppose, about even the album cover. It's large, it's physical. An example here, I don't know if you can see. But, artwork, it's that big. It has the band, everything's there. Everything has a texture and even a scent. Like there's just multiple, it's tactile. It touches, several senses beyond just the obvious, audio. There's all sorts of things going on there. And, it is also insanely pleasing to take these old albums and old recordings, old bits of history, really, and, restore them and get them back onto people's turntables again. They may have sat in someone's attic or, spare room for 50 years. And now they're being enjoyed, coveted, by people that are sharing them with their friends and family. it's a pretty good
Mm-hmm.
feeling for sure. And they write us and they tell us that all the time, like beyond testimonials or ratings or whatever, it's a very personal thing and an emotional thing. They'll send us pictures of, they bought an album for their kid for Christmas and he's 8. And he's like holding the album under the tree, and they'll send us pictures of that to say, oh, thank you so much. Because a lot of the things that we offer are, like they're popular, but there's a lot of obscure stuff that you're really not going to find anywhere else and in great condition. And I think that's kind of been our niche and
Mm-hmm.
probably our sort of purple elephant, if you will, is, to kind of
Mm-hmm.
offer both. You can't be everything to everyone, but I think in some ways we kind of try to offer, everything from like a hardcore punk collector to the dad who wants to buy his son
Mm-hmm.
something cool for Christmas and the kid's 8. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Also,
is surprising.
remember the time that we just had 5 records, 5 or 7, vinyl records, and we were so much happier. And then instead of right now, we have like hundreds and thousands of stuff on our Spotify, and we're just so lost, and we just listen to like few of the tracks. So it's just having something about that physical aspect of having that vinyl that you can go back and enjoy and go more deeper into that experience rather than having a whole bunch of music on your phone.
Here's the other difference. You're absolutely right. Is that it forces you to stay in one place. Like when
Mm-hmm.
you've got your stereo and you put your album on, you're not driving in the car. You're not, going somewhere else, doing some chores in the backyard. You have to sit with the music. And it is not always an instant gratification. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have patience because your favorite song might be track 3 and you got to wait. And there's something to be said for that, right? It forces you into this kind of different state where you just gotta just bring it down a few notches and just be okay with everything and enjoy the scenery. Like that is what I do love about vinyl. You can't boss it around. It kind of owns the room and you don't really have a choice. And
In
that's
a
one of
world
the
where you can fast forward any track and you can you can pinpoint, you can move the cursor into anywhere, and so this sets you in a system that you have to follow rather than you dictating to it. So which is
yeah.
also a very original experience. Yeah.
Exactly. Is organic, right? Like that was sort of, I suppose the other part of it is that back in the day, a lot of these albums were designed by the artist to be a whole experience. So you put the album on track 1 all the way to the end of side 1, all the way to the end of side 2. And it's meant to be a cohesive experience. It isn't like, today we are listening to one track at a time, one song at a time, one section of one song at a time. Back then, it was meant to be a whole experience and you just went along for the ride. And in the greatest albums, it's almost a cathartic experience. I think of like Pink Floyd's The Wall, excellent example where
Mm-hmm.
it is really a very kind of emotional, intense experience that kind of wraps up at the end and absolutely designed that way, as many of those albums were. The best albums were like that. And you're almost exhausted at the end or uplifted. It sort of depends, right? But you feel
Mm-hmm.
something. You feel
Mm-hmm.
something. That's time well spent, I think. That's a good investment to just spend a bit of your time like that, to get out of your head, to get out of your chores and your stresses and just give in to a different experience. And that's
Mm-hmm.
money well spent. Like for what you get, I know that vinyl can be expensive and, an original Pink Floyd The Wall, well, that's going to set you back a bit. But you're playing it again and again, and it's an asset that you have. And if you take good care of it, you can sell it for more than you bought it for a year later.
Mm-hmm.
These are investments these days. Like that's a lot of people are also buying vinyl for investment. If they're buying the right ones, they're only increasing in value and sometimes quite rapidly, like, 100% a year. You see some albums and literally there's people that will buy them instantly. It's an aggressive market still and growing. Like, what is it? Like billions of dollars were spent last year in vinyl. I can't remember the exact number, so I don't want to quote it wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
it's now like a multi-billion-dollar market globally again. So there's more albums being bought now than there were back at the height of vinyl. So
Wow.
it's crazy. Nobody would have expected that. I didn't really see that. I just sort of saw that people love to buy, some albums sometimes, but now I see that lots of people like to buy lots of albums all the time. So
what's your bestseller?
Pink Floyd The Wall? No. No. Probably, though, I would say Dark Side of the Moon is still by Pink Floyd is still the number one selling album of all time on the planet. And that remains absolutely true for us as well. We try and keep it here, but it's very difficult. It never lasts more than a few days. And there's several albums like that, but they're all sort of the greats from that particular period of time. And it doesn't matter if it's old pressing or a new pressing. Michael Jackson's Thriller, same thing. They're sort of the top of that text, and people just want them. It doesn't matter which pressing, what age. Is it original? Is it more recent? We're very careful to state exactly which version it is. There can be hundreds of versions, thousands of versions in the case of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Thousands of versions, and they almost all have the same serial number, so it's pretty hard to tell the difference, but we do our best because it does affect quality and value. So
do you feel like these vinyls could be like assets, like that's something collectors that you could hold and you could sell, in 10 years for much more?
Well, it's true right now that is true. I mean, a lot of collectors, myself included, have their collections insured. I keep mine in a cold room that's been redesigned as a vinyl room, and it is, very specific temperature, humidity. It's dark, it's sealed, and that's where I keep them until I'm ready to play them. And then I have a shelf where I keep them, by the turntable a whole floor away to just listen to them. And then they go back to the cold room where they're kept, like that. But I feel like it depends on the trend. If people if the sort of sensibilities keep trending towards authenticity and realness, then vinyl will only increase in value, because what we're selling, there is an absolute finite number of those available. Every flood, fire, accident that happens, there are less of those albums available in the world. That's why the value of them really never diminishes. It only, it's only a question of how much it increases. Rarity. Sometimes an album will spike in popularity because it was used in the soundtrack of a TV show, like on Netflix or whatever. So you think of Stranger Things. They put Kate Bush's album, her song Running Up That Hill, which is from the Hounds of Love album. And it went overnight from, it was always kind of a popular album. It was $40 to $50 to $200-300 each the next week. And it stayed like that for about 2 months, where people just couldn't get enough of it. And, you sell out very quickly, which is kind of a challenge because we typically only have one of an album on the site at one time. So if you see something you like, you kind of need to snag it. And lots of our repeat customers who buy, 70, 80 orders each easily, they know that. They know that because we add new vinyl every day, so you never know what's going to be up. So it's kind of, we also have customers that say, I never go to your site past midnight because then I wake up in the morning and then I made all these purchases and right. So, and I respect that. I respect that completely. You gotta, know your limits, stay within it for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. So Tammy, you're a serial entrepreneur and you have done a lot of other businesses in the past. You understand marketing quite well. You understand design.
Yep.
When you got into Vinyl Pursuit, how was that journey applying your previous experience into e-commerce? Something like vinyl, which is original and has to be cleaned, there's a lot of personalization that needs to be done. So how was that experience?
To move from, I suppose that many elements of it were made much easier, like creating a brand, building a brand, defining a brand, and executing a brand, and understanding what the brand stands for. So you create standards that's what the brand stands for. And those things inform your processes. So I knew that as I was buying vinyl, and not a lot of vinyl, like tend to be a little bit more fussy. So I would import a record from Japan or an album from Germany because I love those types of pressings of particular albums. And so as a buyer, occasionally, as a collector, I know the experience I want to have. I don't want to open it and it's not packed very well and it's dirty and it's not at all what I was sort of imagining I was buying. And immediately you understand that what you don't want to be. You don't want any of those experiences for your customers. So it just kind of became that. And so what Vinyl Pursuit then stands for, you know what I mean? One reflects upon the other. So what it stands for is like a premium product, a premium experience. You can get, good deals, that kind of thing. For design, I was able to bring 25, maybe more years of design, but also leadership. I've done a lot of like a director of marketing, creative director, a creative strategist for companies at high levels like Intrawest, Expedia, all, big companies. And so I understand large systems. And I think it's really a lot more helpful to understand those types of large structures and just boil them down into something a little bit more micro. But understanding the structure in the first place, I think, is really the key. You have to have it. Without structure, you don't know what you're doing, and you can't have discipline. You can't have discipline
100%.
to know that every package you send is wrapped exactly the same way. It's using exactly the same pieces of like number of tape. Like everything is exactly the same. So the guy who buys 70 orders, his first order looked exactly the same as his 70th order, regardless of how many records were in which size of box. So, our system has been designed to know if there's 2 albums, the system chooses this box that holds 2 albums. If it's 10 albums, it knows which box 10 albums fit in. If they're double albums, single albums, box sets, it knows. If somebody's buying 25 albums, it knows which box. So that stuff, you have to kind of do the hard work in the beginning, and that part isn't as much fun. And for me, it was agonizing because I think it's very much a linear process, and design is very spatial, right? So you're very much imagining a thing and you're problem solving. Like to me, design is all about problem solving. You have XY product here, you have AV audience here, and you have whatever budget is sitting in the middle, and you need to put them together in a way that either will perform and scale. Because they're different things. If you're just building to operate, that's one thing. But if you're building to scale, that's sort of a different style. It's a different build. So luckily I was able to bring that in. And I've done lots of different types of sort of ventures myself. Some are, I guess, I don't know about more successful than others because you learn in everything. And mostly you learn when things are going not the way you hoped. There's not a lot of learning in success. Like once you've figured something out, what are you learning? It's just a rinse and repeat. It's more when the stress or the stuff hits the fan. That's where the big lessons are learned.
I agree.
Yeah.
So e-commerce is something that, online you see a lot of people promoting, you can do, you can sell $100,000 of per month and so and so.
Yeah.
What is the one hard reality that you were faced with as you started this e-commerce company?
Hard reality? That you don't always know why customers are coming to your site or what action, like why are they taking what actions they're taking or why, excuse me, are they not buying things at a certain period of time? You know what I mean? Like when everything is going great and you just see orders after orders, it's very validating. Like you go, yeah, I did everything right. This is awesome. I'm amazing. We're all amazing. It's amazing. But when the opposite is true, where now there's a breeze blowing through the office and nothing is happening, you don't always know why that is. And it's the opposite of validating. And you have to learn to take the emotion out of it. You know, like this isn't a reflection on you as a person. This is just simply, who knows why? The news today, or, you know, gas is $8 a gallon, or, you know, what is driving people's action or lack thereof. And I think that is a hard truth for sure. It's because e-com is in your life, right? Like it's not like it's sort of out there and it's quite abstract. You know, it's very personal. Like e-com is in your life, at your dinner table. It's everywhere with you every day. And it's not quite as, you know, when you have even entrepreneurship or you have a role in like a corporate role and you're there from, you know, 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, there are boundaries and you keep them, and it's quite easy to enforce. With e-com, it's a little bit different because now there's like chat, and because we're selling around the world, everyone's time zones are different. So, you know, we'll get a chat from Bulgaria at, you know, 7 in the morning on Sunday. And it's like, oh, and you only have a few seconds to answer it. So it's not like you can debate this. You've got to chop and get on it. If you're, you know, you're in 100% or you're not. And that's, you know, like that's the difference. It carves your life up quite differently than you would expect. I think that's, you know, a harsh reality of e-com is the operation of it. The promise of it, well, I've never sold $100,000 of something in a month. I don't know. I guess you can. I don't know about it. The people that I think do the best have multiple outlets. Like you think of the Kardashians or something. Well, they're already a global brand and they are on Shopify and they are one of their top sellers, maybe the top. And the whole system revolves around whether they're having a sale or not. Like Shopify will throttle back other sellers in order to give juice to the Kardashians because Kylie's got lip gloss coming out. That's a fact. And we can't blame them. But, you know, and I suppose the other thing that I have learned is how money moves. How money moves through e-commerce is an interesting thing. Most of the time, it's pretty straightforward. It takes time. You got to have patience. It's not like, you know, a sale happens and all the money's in your bank. That's not how it works. It sort of filters through. Everybody grabs their little piece of the pie and then you get what's left a few days later.
Right.
There's that about it. And then there's always these things that happen that you don't know are going to happen, like, you know, different kinds of holds that are mystery holds that nobody knows why they're happening. It's not the bank and it's not the platform and nobody knows, but there's like, you know, $2,000 missing from your account that nobody can account for. But in a few days, it'll come back again and you'll have it again, but nobody can ever answer what happened to it or where it went or why that was. So you always have to have the money to be able to roll those things in case they happen. So, you know, it's a fairly cash rich thing. Like you've got to have money to be able to just be in it because there always seem to be these, or even accidental billings, you know, somebody will charge you twice or 3 times. You got to watch that. I'm not that person, but I've learned that I have to be because I'll look at my bank account and it'll be way smaller and I'll be like, what happened? And then you can see one giant transaction that it's like, why is that a thing? And then you call them. Well, you can never call them. You have to chat. And then you find out, oh, sorry, it's our fault. But it'll take, you know, 10 days to figure that out. So you got to have the ability to cover these things. I hope to not.
And I would,
because there's lots of things great about it, but you asked the question.
Yeah, I resonate with the e-commerce entirely. You know, everybody takes their piece of pie and you get what's remaining, especially when you hold inventory. It is expensive to hold the inventory. and ensure that you're having good inventory turnover as well, because some inventory can sit over there for, months, years, sometimes. So, and your money's tied up to that, right? So with e-commerce, like the world is just an interesting place right now with tariffs, shipping, shipping rates being so high. Like, how do you balance all that? Like, do you, like, say in Bulgaria, you're getting an order, you don't know the shipping rate for sure until, you probably go to Canada Post and stuff like that, right? How do you manage like tariffs, shipping, duties, a lot of other factors that you don't know off the bat?
Well, we spent, like my team, we spent a lot of energy in the middle. That was actually by far the biggest technical challenge, was to have live shipping on the site. So live shipping means that when that person in Bulgaria is on the site, they pick an album and they can see, once they put their address in, all the options to ship it to them. Like, what, do they want it fast? Do they want it cheap? It's usually one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can choose, and they can see, is there insurance attached to it? All those good kinds of things. And then the tariffs, that was a brutal, I can't even voice how brutal that was late last year, when all of a sudden America decides that it's like, oh, it's like this now. But when they brought in the tariffs really suddenly, nobody had any understanding of how they worked. Like, not just merchants, but everyone involved, the people that were administering the tariffs, the Canadian side, the American side, the people handling the packages going across the border or any border. But it was really with America that, the biggest deal was. A lot of European countries are pretty cool about it if the amount is not too large, right? They sort of have de minimis rules as well. But America, all of a sudden, whatever it was, 25 to 35%. And that meant that, literally, like, how I spun it was that because our site is in CAD, then I was able to say, well, look, it's 35% more. That's really just like you're paying what you would pay at home. So really the math was kind of the same. You're just paying in your own currency now. Get over it. And really, the customers didn't understand what the tariffs were. Like, they were pretty sure that we were paying them, right? To more recent times. They're like, well, why is it my problem? I'm like, well, because it's your bill, and they just don't understand. And it became, our fault, our problem. Everybody, like, I'm sure it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. We lost half of our customer base is American. So we lost a huge, customer base just before Christmas. So it was brutal. Yeah, it was. And we tried to fight it, because the other thing about vinyl records is they're actually considered informational documents. So there isn't supposed to be any tariff attached to them. They're sort of like books, and they're sort of like informational documents. So, like a record of an event. This is just a record of music. So it's a record, like a book is a record, right? Same idea. But in the end, even though we did get a good ruling and we were using the correct HS code, the people at the border processing it were just making stuff up. They would decide sometimes a package could go through, sometimes it couldn't. And when it couldn't go through, they decide once it gets to the city that it's going to. So if it's going to Kentucky, there's no problem until it gets to Kentucky. And then they want it'd be $100 order, and they would ask the customer to pay an extra $100 to get the package. And at 35%, that makes no sense. But then they charge penalties, fees, tariffs, import fees. Somehow this is like double what the customer paid for. Obviously, they're not going to be happy about it, and for sure it's our fault somehow. So then when you decline the package and it gets shipped back to Canada, because it's owned by someone else, you have to re-import it. And you pay again to bring it back across the border, because it's no longer your package. So you spend $200 of records that the guy never got, and you have to refund anyway. It was brutal. Oh my God, that was terrible. But we did get through it, and, now nobody really knows. Now, apparently it's canceled and they're refunding it, but there's still tariff occasionally being taken off. And we built it into the system as a line item. Once we realized that we could not beat it, then we just built it in as a line item. And sometimes, it's just different for every order. And it's the wild, wild west and nobody knows what's going on. So it is disastrous. And it remains that way. It's not any worse than it was, but until it goes away completely, that's the way it is. Over in Europe or overseas, people, if it does happen, they understand, they have a little bit better understanding. But because we've always had free trade, it's like people are like, what is this? What are you charging me for this?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It has a lot to do with the political messaging too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you have to be, unfortunately, fairly apolitical in this case. You can't really sort of have an opinion. You can just talk about it as a fact. Again, you've got to take the emotion out of it. You can't sort of be like, oh, that administration is making us crazy. It's like, well, no, you can't. You got to lead with just like, these are the facts. This is all we know. This is how we're responding. You choose accordingly. Like, we hope that you stay with us, but it is what it is. Literally, you can't do more than that.
I got a fun question for you.
Yay.
So what advice would you give to a Canadian aspiring business owner who is looking to start a e-commerce company? This person is creative and wants to sell the creative outlet through e-commerce. What advice would you give to that person?
Let me confirm what I just need to understand. When you say creative outlet, you mean they've built the brand and they're ready to do the e-commerce? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like they're a creative person, just like yourself, like good at packaging, good at storytelling, branding, those aspects.
I see. Well, that is an interesting question, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's fun and it's interesting because, as this business has reached a stage where it's very stable and it just works and it's quite repetitive, I find myself looking for that creative outlet. And I like solving problems, and I feel like I've solved this problem. It's solved. It works and it works. And that kind of means, you need to do other things. So if it were me and I were looking to market my creative skills, is that your question?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking the very same thing. I suppose that what I would do is, does the person have experience or no? They're just fresh, or do they have experience?
They're fresh.
Oh dear.
Into e-commerce.
Fresh into e-commerce, and they're wanting to market themselves as a creative force.
Let me backtrack. What advice would you give to a aspiring business owner who's looking to start an e-commerce company? They're a creative person. They want to start an e-commerce company.
And they already have a business, and they basically want to extend their offering online. Create an e-commerce business, or is it the same business or a different business that they already have?
It's a different business. They're starting in e-commerce.
I gotcha. Research. I don't ever believe in guessing or throwing darts at a board, although I do love darts. But I think it's really important to research e-commerce itself is only the engine. It's not what the question is what you're selling, who's your market, how easy and successful is it to get your idea to your market. And I always believe in researching what other people's experiences are on both sides, buyers and sellers. What was, somebody, let's say it's novelty sock. Okay, so what was the experience when somebody bought them from Temu? What was their experience when they bought them from somewhere awesome?
Mm-hmm.
And then, is there room in the market? What is the differentiator that you can provide? I mean, I think it's helpful to enter a market where there is competition because it establishes proof that it works. If you are a trailblazer, and I've done it before where it's absolutely not existing in the market, you are going to spend almost all your energy on education, educating the public what it is, why it matters, why they should buy it from you, and that the value is good. As opposed to socks. People know what they are. I have socks. You have socks. We all have socks. but these are special socks. What's special about them? And then you can tell a story, and it is all storytelling. And then it's proof that you will deliver. Do you know what I mean? Like proof that you're not some, fly by night person. And if I buy your socks and I love your socks and I want to buy them at Christmas for my friends, I can still get them. They'll still be there, or maybe not exactly the same socks, but you know what I mean? That I have so much confidence in your business that I will buy gift cards. That to me is the ultimate expression of confidence when people buy gift cards from your site, because that suggests that here's $100. I believe that you will be around in however many months for, my friend to spend his $100. So that's kind of, it. And shipping is everything. Shipping in e-commerce, because unless you're delivering a digital product, obviously, if you're delivering a physical product, how it gets there is everything. And to just backtrack a little bit about shipping, how we did it is commercial accounts are very important. So we have commercial accounts with Canada Post and UPS, and we have aggregators as well. So we have multiple accounts that we can choose from to ship anything. So even though the customer, we try and pick what the customer wants, if we can get a better, faster deal through somebody else, we're going to ship it that way. Because often we subsidize the cost of the shipping through shipping specials. So if somebody buys X number amount of product, then we will offer $10 shipping in North America. If they buy, $100 worth, just a little bit more, then we'll offer free shipping. And the reason we can do that is because we have commercial shipping that does two things. It gives us much better rates, and it gives us 30 days to pay. So time times money. Do you know what I mean? That's the formula. So you've got to have both. So it's really so much about the technical details at the beginning, but knowing first that you have a product that people want and that you can compete with in a market. So your supply, your quality, what is your story? What is the thing that makes you special? And that's where people like me that's where we come in to do that part of it. What is your story? Because a lot of people, I think that it's difficult for them to be their own client and to tell their own story. It's much easier for someone to come from outside, bring that experience, know the language, and simply be able to apply it and know SEO and write content for search engine optimization, which I would say is the other thing we haven't even touched on in e-commerce. Huge, super important. E-commerce, search engine optimization is everything. And why? Because unless you want to spend lots of money on Google ads and Facebook ads, search engine optimization allows you to do those things for almost nothing. I spend, I don't know, maybe $100 a month, but I have amazing SEO, and I do it organically. I don't pay for the SEO, but every page, everything we do, everything we write is absolutely tailored to the needs of search engine optimization. And that is key. Every page is optimized. In my case, I'm lucky because I have at least 10,000 live pages on my site. That helps because Google sees it and goes, wow, there's something happening. Right. But also people are coming constantly because, again, we post new vinyl every day. So you keep traffic moving. It's sort of like a game. Well, it is exactly a game. And that's kind of how you design your structure of your site. And the offerings that you make can't be static. It can't be like, I put up my 25 pairs of socks. Now we'll see what happens. Now it has.
Did you say you have 10,000 pages on your website?
Yeah. I have actually 24,000 total, but a lot of them reflect albums that have already been sold. So,
wow.
But we don't archive them. They're still sitting there because that still helps your SEO. So, like I said, everything we do is absolutely tailored to serve those needs, because that means that somebody in Germany did buy our record and we didn't pay to show up there. We just had the stuff and showed up along with everybody else and just had the better offer.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Wow. 10,000 pages is a lot.
Yeah. Yes. So if you don't have that, there's other ways to get there too. I don't think it takes 10,000 pages, but that's why I think that companies rely a lot on blogs and, those kinds of things because it allows Google to see that something's new, something's changing. Oh, they've added something, and Google looks for that. That's also why we add new product every day, even if it's not exciting product. I mean, hopefully it is, but it really doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're doing something. I don't know if you have to do it every day, but that's kind of the structure that we have because we've got, probably 25,000 albums in our inventory that are offsite, that aren't even for sale. And so we keep a really big inventory to pull from all the time. And luckily I bought that during COVID. So
Super.
It would be a lot more expensive or impossible to do now.
Awesome. Coming to my last question, and I heard you bringing this up about the game.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, what is a real game of business in your opinion?
That's such a tricky question because I think a lot of people think that it's just to make money. And I think that's the outcome. That isn't really the game itself. That in itself is not going to keep you motivated. I think the game is the validation you get from winning. And the winning comes from when good product meets happy customer, and happy customer becomes your biggest fan and tells all sorts of other people about what you do and why you do it. And that was part of my success as a designer for decades, was exactly that approach. Is like, you don't just deliver, you amaze. And that I don't know if there's money that you can spend that can deliver that sort of feeling, like, buy TV commercials, billboards, whatever. It's really much more, I think, a personal vibe, a personal feeling that great product or great product meets great expectation, makes happy customer. It's a formula. And that, I don't know, that'll take you to the finish line every time. And I think the money is just simply an obvious outcome of that formula. I think it's just that. To me, it's just that. I don't know. Maybe it should be just about the money, but I don't know. I think it's more important thing.
Tammy, it's a pleasure having you in our show, and thanks for sharing your experience. It just sounds so amazing that what you're doing, selling vintage vinyls. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. I had no expectation that journey would be leading to now. And, we won an award from the city a few months ago. And I still can't quite believe that happened. It just seems like such an odd thing that, and it was for ethics. It was excellence in ethics. Excellence, yeah. So a business award from the Chamber of Commerce. And, that meant a lot. I think that it's nice to have recognition when you're working a little bit isolated. You're a little bit in a bubble.
Yes.
But the thing about e-commerce that is to know is that, you got to be pretty comfortable with your own time, spending time with yourself, because it is a little bit of an isolating thing depending on how much you grow. But even the nature of being online, it's isolating for sure. So
it is.
To see people recognizing what we do from the outside, it was a very nice feeling. I was surprised at how nice it was.
And today's day and age, there's a lot of tools, AI tools, this tools, that tools. And then there's just, you as a business owner looking at all those tools, trying to figure out what actually makes sense for your business. So it can be pretty isolating, and you're like, there's so much you can explore, but it is you as an owner.
That's a really good point, because, as on, let's say, any platform on my own time, I'm scrolling through Facebook. Well, the algorithm knows all about what I do. And so it's always pitching me the newest, greatest AI driven, blah, 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 constantly. And of course you think, oh, well, I do want to be making $100,000 a month. Like, yeah, I do. And your attention gets pulled. And what I started doing as soon as I started seeing those ads, which was constant, is I would just hit review. I would take the name and I would go over to Google and I would say, XYZ app review. Immediately you see that 16 people are using it and they all hate it. Well, okay. That is what I learned. And now I stop looking at them. Now I let need drive instead of impulse, because You're right. There's so many things trying to grab your eyeballs and your wallet because these things all are expensive, especially when you have a 10,000 page website, because a lot of these sites are built on, they charge based on size, right? So you're not in the basic package ever. So you got to be pretty careful. So now I let me drive. When I see that there's something we should be doing better, or I'm at someone else's site and I'm like, oh, that feature is so cool. Would it be good for us? I research it first, and not just, who provides it and how much is it, but is it just a gimmick because I like the shiny thing at the moment? Or is it actually going to support the customer experience and ultimately sales? Because that's how the answers should come, right? Like, this isn't like, it's all pretty obvious when you think about it. And then you don't choose on emotion. It has to be evidence-based. Choose on analytics and choose, like, watch your numbers after you add something. Is it helping? Well, chop if it isn't. And the more apps you add, the slower it makes your site, the more it costs. You got to be careful.
That's very true. There's only so much apps your site can handle.
Yeah, exactly. And then it starts working against you. And, people kind of, going back to that organic experience, want a clean, simple experience. I think they don't want pop-ups and they don't want stuff in their face. They just want to move through the thing. And the search engine, very important. Search for us is huge. So because we have so many products, how people find them is really important. So we do invest quite a bit in having the right search app attached. That's very significant. But I think that would be true even if you had 5 products and they were all on the same page. You still want people to get to them quickly.
Exactly. Tammy, thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you today. And thanks for joining us in the show. Yeah, thank you for this platform and this time. And I'm excited. Thank you very much. Cheers.